GM. How's it going, Rangers? How's it going, Dylan? And Chase?
Hey,
Long
bro.
time no see.
Hey, Chase. All well here. Everything's on your end.
Not too bad, not too bad. It is a beautiful Wednesday morning over here. It's fall time where I live, and it's one of my favorite seasons. I'm super stereotypical on that front. I love the, you know, pumpkin flavored things, the like apple cider culture that we have over here in America land. I'm a big fan. So yeah. Yeah, Chase says that his wife also loves fall. Summer 2.0. Nice. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and kick things off today. Unfortunately, the mighty Dixie will not be joining us. He has some other commitments to tend to. So it will just be the three of us up here. Actually, I may see if anybody from our community essentials committee wants to come up and chat as well. Now that y'all are official, which will be like the first piece of news that I will open with. But if any of you want to raise your hand, feel free to do so. So good news on that front. These folks spent a good long while putting together a proposal, went up for vote, and passed with flying colors. So now it is being proposed to execute through OSNAP, and that should go through without dispute. And I don't remember our liveness window there. It might be a silly number of days, like 5 or something.
It's 5 days.
Yeah, okay. So 5 days, and then that should be able to execute, and you guys will be fully operational, which is super exciting. So just wanted to give a big congrats to folks on that front. Yeah, let's pause and talk about that for a minute. How's that feeling? Are you guys excited?
Very excited. And I was a bit surprised. It was 177 wallets voted. And we smashed the 6 million. It was 8 million votes. So, yeah, I was a little bit surprised about the engagement, but it was awesome. And you know me, I was nervous right up to the last hour, just in case someone with 9 million votes came in. So I was happy when it finished.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a breath of fresh air to not have to worry about that anymore. So give us your sort of like plan for the next week. What will y'all be working on in the next week? And where can folks tune in if they want to see what you're up to?
Indeed. Well, we've been working all along in October anyway, and so you'll see people doing the moderation, which they'll continue doing, the quizzes, the games, and some specific in the background. What we'll be working on is updating the mod handbook that was created from a while back. We also, because now there's paid members, we want to get like a HR document going, and what if someone resigns? What do you do then? How do you do the payments? So everything involved in having kind of staff, I guess. We want to put that all together. We've got other activities. We want to increase the Twitter engagement, Discord engagement. So this first quarter, we want to just get like the benchmark going for hopefully subsequent quarters as well. So it's going to be lots of things that we're going to be doing, and we want to help Risk Labs and across achieve their goals as well. Increase TVL, increase LPs, and help out in any way we can.
Right on. Very good. Well, exciting stuff. For listeners out there, Amanda dropped a tweet in the chat channel, and I just wanted to ask y'all to go give it a like and retweet quickly. Yeah, right on. I'm excited to dive in with you guys, and as you know, I have pretty high hopes and pretty high standards for that for y'all in the remainder of this year. So I'm going to be doing my best to push the accomplishments that we can achieve together, as well as making sure that I am being the best like touch point that I can be between this new committee and Risk Labs. Yeah, super exciting.
Yeah, and one thing as well, sorry, sorry before I move on, it's a lot of props has to go to you as well, Brett, because without you, I don't think this would have got off the ground. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm just here to help. So, awesome. Well, last update on the governance front. Kevin, who is the Risk Labs treasurer, has posted a proposal on forum to request ACX from the Across DAO for future funding for Risk Labs activities, which includes some compensation for developers who work on Across, as well as some funding for strategic partnerships that are in discussions right now. I wanted to encourage everybody here and future listeners to go have a look at that and engage with it, ask questions if you have any, provide supporting thoughts if you have any. It is a really substantial amount of ACX, and so I would be remiss if I didn't notify people of it and really like try and drag feedback out of folks. I just want to really make sure that there's opportunity for questions to be had, and yeah, so exciting stuff. Go check it out. And now let's bounce the ball over to our data folks, Dylan and Chase. What's good this week?
Across market share is good this week. We just crossed Stargate if you're restricted to just tokens and routes that we support. So Across now accounts for 43% of the flows going through the bridge space, whereas Stargate only counts 40%. So we've officially flipped them, albeit on a cherry-picked sort of measure. But it's cool nonetheless. And yeah, and I know we kind of probably say this every week, but if you haven't, make sure you go check out the DeFi Llama Bridges dashboard. It's like really handy for keeping an eye on the kind of the pulse of the market. But yeah, you can kind of see that like Across. Have a look at like our like 7-day volumes in comparison to like Stargate, and just see like it's also interesting, and I can maybe share some data on this. But like if you look at like the amount of volume for the amount of fees generated, like you can kind of just see that like Stargate from like a protocol valuation perspective has a worse ratio than Across us, which is also another kind of interesting point. But yeah, anyway, I guess to round it up, it's like things are going exceptionally well since the introduction of Base and ZK Sync, and yeah, that's really starting to show itself in the numbers. I'm actually just going to ping in a screenshot of what I'm talking about here, just so you guys are on the same page as I am. But here's like the 7-day moving average of our here's the 7-day moving average of our market share versus Stargate. And yeah, like the real tuna, yeah, I agree. Like it is ridiculously expensive, and the majority of the reason people were using it for a long while was for the layer 0 airdrop farming opportunity. And like as that's kind of like started to, I don't know, move away from the collective mind share, and people are kind of getting bored of it being stretched out so long, like the market's going to kind of revert to the more natural sort of state where they're going to pick the most price competitive and fastest bridge around, and that just happens to be us. When you look in a fair comparison of like when you're like given the choice of all the different bridges for a particular bridge transfer, like in an aggregator like Bungie or LiFi, you can kind of see it's clearly Across coming through at the front, and like that's why we're like I think at like 70 to like 80% of aggregator market share is Across. So that kind of tells you in that like fair fight were dominating, and that's anyway starting to now reflect itself in the wider numbers, which is really great to see. One other cool thing I thought, and like I suppose this is probably like a big win for Socket as well. You might have seen that they were one of the only bridges to come out with their funding approved from the Arbitrum grant proposal. But like they've also now jumped up literally like another 10% in terms of the like aggregator penetration ratio, which is kind of like how much of the overall volume in the market is captured by aggregators. So like pre the like Stargate airdrop farming, that ratio was coming in at like somewhere between 5 and 10% on a monthly basis. Like that's talking like towards the earlier half of the year. Now we're upwards of like 25%, which is absolutely massive. So it's just showing you people like had their eyes cast on what aggregators can provide, and like I think they're really starting to recognize that it's very much like the experience you get when you use something like 1inch or another like Dex aggregator. Like people will start using bridge aggregators because they just make sense to do it. And yeah, when there's other incentives like those ARB tokens or those OP tokens in terms of rebates, in combination with underlying bridges doing those incentives as well. It's a really nice experience for someone to go through. It's kind of removing a lot of the friction and costs associated with bridging. So yeah, we don't really see that kind of slowing down at any time in the near future.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just rambled in a lot there. Any questions?
No questions, but that chart is super satisfying to see the
Yes.
lines cross like that. Like it just tickles my happy spot.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Last kind of bullish thing to call out is that since we've started Q4, we've had about 7,000 new users convert to being Across users. So those are like users who have never used Across before. They've brought in another 18.5 million in volume, and about 90% of their transactions after they converted have been sticky, which means 90% of their transactions after have been with Across. So that's really cool. Like that kind of just tells you it is like what's the chance of someone sticking around once they have tried the product? Like, do they like it? And considering that ratio is really high, it's a good indication of the kind of like product experience and the offering that we're managing to give them. And that's very much reflected in our like monthly active users, which is coming in at around like 45,000. Like that's cool. Now,
That is
fair
cool.
enough. There is probably a few bots in there, but 45,000 users a month, guys. Come on, that's really awesome.
Yeah. What I was gonna ask like what you use to define converted users. So you obviously like filtered for people who had not used Across and then did use Across
Exactly.
and used it like a certain number of times again afterwards.
Yeah, you basically look at like a period prior to the like kind of like snapshot window that you want to analyze, and you see like as long as they haven't done any bridge transaction on Across beforehand, but they might have done a bridge transaction on a competitor bridge, then that will make them like a qualifying user. And then you look in the actual conversion snapshot period, did they do a bridge with Across? If so, how much volume? And then how many times did they do transactions after the fact? Of those transactions after the fact, how many of them were with Across versus other bridges?
That's super cool.
Yeah, it's cool. These are some of the things that we kind of like to keep an eye on for our kind of like monthly APIs, just to make sure that like everything is going according to plan. And yeah, like the numbers are promising, and they genuinely have been just like very, very positive over the last month and a half. But realistically, over like the last 3 months, they've been kind of going up and to the right, and I suppose that's been reflected in both our volumes and our market share. So yeah, long may it last.
Yeah, and real quick comment on the Arbitrum uh grant that Socket got. I think that's like doubly cool because that grant was oversubscribed, and so they had to allocate based on like best support results. And there were a couple of other bridges who did actually pass but did not end up getting funded because they didn't receive enough support. And two of those were Wormhole and Stargate, our good friend Stargate. So it was really heartwarming for me to see that Socket received higher amount of support than one of our like direct competitors. Like that feels super bullish for me on the bridge space as a whole.
Yeah, for sure.
Voters kind of prioritized an aggregator.
Very interesting to see that Wormhole was in there. So is that for them bridging? Is that for them bridging like Solana, like wrapped Solana or something like that to Arbitrum? Like what's their offering kind of there? I haven't heard much about what they're up to on L2s.
I don't actually know the details. I didn't read their proposal since we don't consider them a direct competitor. But I do know that theirs did receive like enough support to pass technically. It just didn't get funded.
I'm always slightly terrified of typing them into Google because they don't actually have a bridge address that's their address. I think it's like Portal Bridge, and yeah, it is coming up. So if you guys don't use this, there's the DeFi Llama extension that tells you when a crypto address that you're on is safe or not, according to like some repository that they've got going and that they maintain. It's very handy, but like always be careful when you're typing in crypto addresses onto Google, because like just the other day I typed in dbank pro and it brought me to dbank.pro, and luckily enough that extension came up with a big warning saying you're just about to go onto a phishing site. But like when you're doing things quickly and you're typing in addresses, it's very easy to be led down to something that might drain your wallet. So just always be careful. And extensions like that, and also I forget what they're called, but the MetaMask features that you can add on that like give your wallet that little bit of extra security. I think it's like where it like tells you what's actually going to happen with the output of a transaction. Those kind of features are very important to have on, and they're just useful and there for you to actually use. Snaps, there you go. Yeah, the MetaMask snaps. I think there's a couple there from security providers that should block kind of like known phishing scams and should like give you like explicit detail as to like what you're approving or not. So make sure everybody goes and has a look at them.
That's cool. Do you have any links that you want to drop in the chat for those extensions /snaps?
Yes, I will see if I can find it.
Right on. Yeah, this is all super exciting. Very, very pleased with just like the direction of the bridge space generally. And yeah, Tuna mentioned that V3 makes him bullish as well. So that's a little teaser, I guess, for folks to go check out Kevin's proposal. Part of the funding request from Risk Labs is intended to help build out and find launch partners for across V3, which is going to be an intents-based model. Yeah, so exciting stuff.
I'm looking forward to getting Dixie back on next week and to start seeing can we leak any alpha from him on what stuff we can speculate on will be in V3 and how they're actually going to go about doing it. Like, I'm interested in it for my own selfish purposes.
Yeah, same. I don't know like what I don't know where they're at in the planning for like what will and won't be in scope for that, but I think that's like what they're diving into next after they wrap up with composable bridging, right? At least I think so.
I think
I guess
so.
we'll have to wait. Chase, you've been awfully quiet over there. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Dylan just had it covered today. All I was going to say is numbers go up.
Yeah.
I said that more elegantly than I was going to.
Numbers do go up.
I wouldn't really call it elegantly. It was more just random waffle that didn't stop and just trailed off into oblivion. But yeah, no.
Yeah, but I like to call what you say elegant so that you feel good about yourself.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Really, it's just word vomit and number vomit, but you know.
Chase also doubles as my therapist, so.
Same. I did have one data question actually. So I was mentally tracking with the like across market share number, like closer to 15% or something like that, 15 to 20%. Is that that's like a more zoomed out market share number?
I think that one might be excluding ZK Sync, so I can actually share this one as well. It like you could kind of call it like a fair apples to apples comparison, but like realistically, Stargate should have ZK Sync at this point, so like I don't have that much sympathy. There we go. I just put it into the chat there.
Okay.
But yeah, like even on this one, like we're still up and to the right. Fair enough. The slope of our growth isn't as steep, but like you can still see that we're gaining there relative to Stargate. So like, yeah, the giants will fall, and the kind of best projects win. And yeah, all I can say is go across. Woo.
Go across woo. Nice. I dig it. Any news on plans for the next chain to be added? That is a very good question. I don't know if Dylan or Chase have more up-to-date context on this than I do.
I think the plan for now is to focus on like more feature rollout and like our current roadmap rather than adding more chains. So basically, like each time you add a chain, you put further strain on your existing liquidity, and you also have to commit engineering resource, and you're also inheriting like more kind of like system risk. So like there's more security assumptions. What happens if a chain goes down and it's like part of the system? So like there's definitely trade-offs to adding new ones, and like you kind of have to weigh that up like with the fact that we've already kind of covered 90 or more % of the flows in the market and all the different chains those are going to. Obviously, like we can revisit that if there becomes like a new standout chain that we should be adding on. But I think the decision like Ryan and the engineering team have made to kind of like focus on developing new features like composable bridging on top of a cross rather than just adding the upteenth chain on the list is probably the right thing to do. Like realistically, you'd need to go out and you'd need to really gain a whole hell of a lot more LP capital, and like that's not necessarily an easy feat. And then you'd probably need to hire more engineering resource in order to be able to do everything that we want to do in combination with adding more chains. So like there's always that kind of like trade-off decision matrix you need to think of when doing it. It's not just an easy decision. Hope that makes sense.
We should make a commitment. If we had Ryan on here, we could get him to say, if we raise X amount of LP capital, we add Y chain.
Yeah, I like that. Next week, Brett, I think you have to force Ryan to come on, and then we can start berating him and make him leak all the alpha.
We can say mean things to make him cry.
or we could do that.
I already give him enough headaches. We don't need to give him a stroke. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I wonder what that number is actually, because I know like our biggest constraint on adding a new chain is actually just like the liquidity part of it more than anything else. Like some chains might be not safe to add yet due to like lack of RPC providers. I know that was a big headache with ZK Sync, but like
Yeah,
assuming
RPC providers are in general just a headache.
Yeah.
With as many chains as we have right now, I'd say 25% of engineering time, maybe that's an overestimate, but a very non-trivial amount of engineering time goes to just kind of keeping things like running. And they just, something will pop up, and then there are things that need to be solved immediately, and that means you have to postpone other things that you are working on, and then you lose context, and it's just RPCs are hard.
Yeah. Amen. But assuming there was a chain that was like ripe for the picking, like they had good volume, they had enough RPCs to choose from. At this point, our biggest constraint definitely would be liquidity, bridge liquidity. So.
Yeah, assuming everything else is perfect, yes, LP is the big constraint. That's an interesting comment in terms of the ACX price. As that rises, will it enable further LP capital growth? I don't know, maybe. Like you would probably like juice yields a little bit more in the short term if we like are allocating like a fixed supply of ACX and the value of that ACX that we're paying out rises. So that like should attract additional capital. But like at that point, then you might decide that like, okay, is it actually worth paying out the amount of ACX we are in dollar value, or should we like look to reduce emissions? Like you want to do everything sustainably. So it's a difficult thing to know. Like we need to find that right sort of balance there. I'm kind of a fundamental believer in the fact that like once liquidity starts entering the cryptoverse again, some of these problems will just right themselves. Like more money will be sloshing around the system looking for a home, and Across is a relatively attractive prospect. But then again, we're also going to see massively bigger flows in terms of bridge volumes. So like our system is going to be more under strain. So it's kind of like a chicken and an egg there. But yeah, I think for some reason it'll probably just work itself out. It'll be interesting to see how it develops though, nonetheless.
I have a fun question. If you guys, as like data folk who think about this a lot, if you were to devise a, I don't know, a campaign to attract new liquidity, what would you do?
Ooh, I would send them over to a dashboard like this, and I would say, if you scroll down the bottom there and you look at the cross APY by token chart, I would say that you will find it very difficult to find APYs as lucrative as that in single-sided staking liquidity pools anywhere else in DeFi. And smart money would definitely consider that an interesting proposition. Because genuinely, when you put us in comparison to a lot of what else is available on the market, like it's a very attractive offering. Now, obviously, there is a certain size at which you get diminishing marginal returns, considering that you'll just dilute everybody else who's in the pool. But like for the average Joe looking to get their money working for them, I think the APYs that we're paying out for the like with no impermanent loss is like a very attractive proposition. So yeah, I would just be harping on about that.
I mean, I know some of that is ACX, like which is what I think you were alluding to there.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the pure ETH yields in the last little bit haven't been too bad. Treasury bills are like paying more than almost all of DeFi right now, which is a frustrating place to be. But I mean, I think our ETH yields were at like 4 or 5% on ETH, which like you can't get that anywhere else.
You can't even get that like staking, running your own staking node now. Like maybe when EigenLayer comes along and you start juicing your yields by taking on additional protocol risk, but like genuinely it's some of the best around at the moment.
Even if you ignore the ACX, I do think that's kind of like the compelling thing, which is like you're single-sided staking. You're getting pretty good returns on just the native asset, and we're willing to give you some monopoly money as well just to in the deal.
Yeah. And if you happen to be bullish on that monopoly money over the long term, and you think it's going to take market share away from existing competitors in the space and looking at previous valuations, then the whole story ends up being a lot easier to kind of digest.
Yeah. But again, it's like kind of like I think Dylan and I are both kind of like data / economics / incentives people. And the only way to draw money to to somewhere, basically offering a return. And so that's kind of like the core value prospect of what we need to offer.
Yeah, sorry, Britt, that wasn't very sexy an answer, but I think a lot of crypto does kind of resonate with hard numbers, and if you eventually just like put those out there and people start digesting them and realizing them, then that has a meaningful impact on actions thereafter. Doesn't mean that it can't be distorted in the short term, but medium to long term things do work out.
Yeah, no, that was a totally a good answer. Very cool. I love it. No comments. In fact, maybe I'll tweet about this after this call. We'll see. Very cool. Well, I think that is just about everything that I have to share with y'all. I wish I had a technical update for everybody, but unfortunately I don't. As far as I know, the engineers are just still working on the composable bridging feature, which, as a reminder, basically just allows you to send a message with your tokens as to what you want to do with them on the destination chain. And this is something that is super useful for developers looking to integrate across into their protocol, because you can do things like send tokens plus deposit them, or tokens plus swap them, something like that. So yeah, just building out developer friendly tooling at the moment, and that should be wrapped up pretty quickly. And I think we have some people who are eager to already be using that. So once they go live, that will be some more exciting news that we can share. Anything else I've missed? Feels like a short update this week. Maybe it's just heads down building kind of moment.
Yeah, short and sweet.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, with that, let me summon our music bot, and we will go ahead and call it a wrap this week. As always, thank you to all of my lovely co-hosts for this call. Thanks to everyone out in the audience who joins these things religiously. We love to see the familiar faces, and super pleased just to have such an awesome community. So thanks again to everybody, and hope you all have a good rest of your day.